All right, let's look at the full moon in Aquarius coming in on August the 19th. This could be a powerful full moon. It is a super moon. It also is a blue moon, which makes it all that much more special. As we are in Leo season, we have Aquarius opposing Leo on the zodiac calendar, offering us a time to look at the shadowy aspects of Aquarius. Now, we are nearing the end of the full moon cycle, where Aquarius takes us into a greater level of collective understanding. So the archetypes of Aquarius are the humanitarian, the inventor, the scientist, also the astrologer. Aquarius does have a very innovative approach to look at life and to look at the complexities of life, but also very progressive and very scientific in its research and in its understanding. So Aquarius, I like to think of Aquarius akin to Scorpio in the sense of going into the depths of information. So Aquarius is naturally a very intellectual archetype. It is a fixed element, of course, because we are also in fixed season with Leo taking charge here. But Aquarius can offer us an ability to go into the depths of information, deep research, deep study, so we can understand the depths of information and gain the most out of the intellectual abilities and capabilities that we have within oneself. Now, I also do want to mention, before I get into the Aquarius archetype and the significance of this full moon, we are also in a karmic debt number 16-7 in the month of August, and the full moon falls on another karmic debt number of 19. Now, 19 is a karmic debt number of an island unto oneself, where one can find themselves working alone a lot, but also needing to understand how to work with others while maintaining one's sense of power. This does also apply to the full moon in Aquarius, very much so, and especially to Leo season. Now we have the fall of the ego, the 16-7, which is the universal month number 7 that we are in the month of August, which does pertain to the shadow aspect of Leo. Now the 19, the karmic debt number 19, also applies to the shadow aspect of Aquarius. Now this is very interesting. I find this extremely interesting to contemplate, to look at, and to see maybe within oneself with the full moon in Aquarius, for example, of how we can be very individualistic in our nature, almost to the point of cutting people out or not wanting to work with anyone. Now, working maybe independently or honoring our unique traits, our uniqueness, our unique talents, our unique gifts is completely fine. However, it can almost swing to the polar extreme of not wanting to work with anyone and working completely in isolation, or having conflicts of power within one's individualistic self. Now, the power struggle could be a power play of the ego, but it also can come in from fear. The fear of opening oneself to others, working with others in a very open and trusting way, in a very fluid way, while also maintaining the individualistic sense of self, the uniqueness of self, which Aquarius offers us to embrace and to acknowledge within ourselves. Now, the traits of Aquarius do represent our uniqueness, our unique self. It does take a lot of courage, Leo, and bravery to embody that, to awaken that within ourselves, honoring our unique gifts and traits and talents and our quirks and what makes us maybe a little bit different, or also even having unique interests that might be unlike anyone else, where we can honor that, where we can embrace it, where we can nurture our interests as well without feeling ashamed or weird or different. And this is the beauty of Aquarius, where we can own our unique interests, our unique self, and let that shine. Now, because this is a full moon, this allows us to look at our shadow aspects. The shadow aspects of Aquarius can represent emotional detachment. Because Aquarius is a very intellectual archetype, it does allow us to go into the depths of information. It can also detach from emotional complexities and emotional interactions and interpersonal relationships on the emotional level. So the shadow aspect of Aquarius could be very removed from the emotional side of oneself, or remove itself from emotional complexities with other people. And the emotional connection with other people is so crucially important. That is what connects us, our emotional connections, our emotional openness and understanding, to understand also our own senses and our own depths within ourselves. And when we have the removal of our emotional self, we are basically removing part of our whole being. So on the shadow side, the Aquarius archetype may avoid emotional connection altogether. It may avoid emotional confrontation. It may avoid emotional depths, or detach from it, or completely numb it out altogether within oneself, or with regards to interpersonal relationships or emotional complexities in certain environments. So with the full moon, we get to look at the shadow aspects. This is one of the shadow aspects. The other shadow aspect is stubbornness. All the fixed signs have a little bit of stubbornness in there. The fixed signs like to do things their own way, at their own time, in their own pace. So there could be a little bit of the stubborn energy as we are in fixed season. There can be a little bit of a stubbornness aspect of being very fixed and rigid and controlling, maybe to an extent, of one's own path and the way that one does things. So there may need to be a little bit of flexibility and openness that can be integrated into this full moon practice if it is resonating with you. But I would like to focus on the emotional removal, or the emotional detachment, or the emotional avoidance with this full moon, especially within our personal practice, especially when understanding our emotional complexities, but also the emotional depths and emotional connections with other people, right? And that is a very significant part, because when we are emotionally connected with ourselves, then we are going to understand ourselves more and be more whole and complete, thus also honoring our whole self, which is going to contribute to our individualistic self, which is going to also support our unique self. It's going to empower us to thrive and to shine in our unique way. Now, of course, the other traits of Aquarius do represent the innovator, as I mentioned, thinking outside the box, thinking of humanity, the greater collective. We also have Pluto in retrograde in Aquarius currently, which is going to go direct later portion of the year. This is going to lead into the significance of this full moon, because the full moons are very powerful, and the full moons can gear us up and line us up for something greater if we work with the power of these full moons. And this full moon on a collective level can very well gear us up and line us up for this great change in humanity that is already happening, and that is going to pick up speed as we move into 2025. Aquarius also likes to challenge outdated models. This can apply to the way we work. It can apply to the greater collective, institutional bodies, governing bodies, etc. With Aquarius in motion, especially Pluto moving into Aquarius, this is going to be a theme for many years as we move along here. And this full moon can be quite a change in this direction. It can influence change. It can inspire change, and it can bring in some catastrophic energy as we have two karmic debt numbers lining up. We have the super moon, and I do feel that this full moon in Aquarius is going to almost spark this new wave that's coming in with Pluto moving into Aquarius for 2025. So I do feel that this full moon could very well be that door opener, if you will, even though I know many things have been progressing and have been taking shape and already in momentum, but I do feel this full moon can elevate this change and this movement that we are in, or this progression or evolution that we are in, as Aquarius is going to be very significant in the next several years to come. So this full moon is going to spark this, maybe even a next phase into some kind of revolutionary action or developments of that sort. So Aquarius does like to break through old systems and outdated models, outdated ways of thinking, outdated ways of doing. This is a theme that is definitely already taking shape, but is going to be a very strong theme as we move along, especially into 2025 and beyond. So I feel this full moon can shake up and rattle some of these old, outdated ways of thinking and doing. We also have a big play on technology right now. I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing this firsthand, or even watching the unfoldings of what is happening in the world. But technology is playing into this great shakeup. It's shaking up information in incredible ways, very challenging ways as well. We have to be very discerning where we put our attention and what we are taking in as information, what we are listening to or watching. This can have a very dark side to it, where information and I would say initiatives that are being taken by a lot of people in our greater collective to create change in the world, there can be a very dark side to it where a lot of people become very lost with direction because there's an overload of information. There's this big surge of change that's happening, an undercurrent of change that is pushing the old infrastructure, old ways, and old paradigm out of the ruling position that it has had for quite some time. But there really hasn't been a development of this new way just yet. We're in a bit of a messy period where there's an influx of pushback towards this old system, yet there hasn't been really a clear definition of where we're going with this, what exactly is going to change and how we're going to do it, how we're going to create this new world, if you will, or this new paradigm or this new evolution. It's just we're right in the thick of this transitionary period where it hasn't quite taken shape, but there's a lot of pushback towards the old ways, what hasn't worked, this top-down structure, these top-down policies, and these top-down models that just aren't working, that have suppressed many of us in society. So now this is the uprising of the collective that is now creating a undercurrent of change in our world, and technology is going to be a huge factor of this. So Aquarius does have an aspect of technological advances, but of course, like anything, there can be a great divide in this particular industry or field or realm, if you will. Even taking into consideration the emotional detachment, when we move into technology, it can detach us from our emotional self, interpersonal relationships, connecting with the heart, of course, because we are glued to our phones, moved into more of a technologically advanced society where we are losing the interpersonal connections or interpersonal relationships from the heart or from the emotional sense of self. So I'm going full circle back into this video, going all the way back to the shadow aspect of Aquarius, which is emotional detachment. So I do want to suggest to spend some time during this full moon to reflect on maybe perhaps where is there any emotional detachment within your life? Have you maybe perhaps become very involved in the technology space, or maybe even on social media, become very dependent on that mode of connection? Where can you integrate maybe more human element to your connection or to the connectedness with others from an emotional sense of self, emotional connection, depth of conversation? I hear you, I feel you, I see you, how can I help, or tell me more, or feeling into people more and connecting with your own heart, connecting with your own sense of self. And from that emotional connection, your sense of self will grow. The connection with others will grow. And this is part of how we work with the collective, is through our emotional connection, through our senses, and that is connected with our intuition and with our heart. And then we can merge technology into this. We can merge other aspects of innovation into this fold, as long as we have this emotional foundation that has been taken into consideration, where we are not completely detached from our emotional self, or detaching even further with the advances of technology in this world, or even with the advances of divisiveness in our world as well, as we move through this revolution or whatever is going to happen in the future. Certainly there are going to be revolts in many different areas of the world, but that is coming from a place of divisiveness. It is coming from a place of separation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I feel that in some ways it does need to happen in order for us to progress, but it is very important, of course, in our inner journey within ourselves to identify where is the separation happening, especially within our emotional understanding and our emotional connection, so that we can help the evolution of consciousness towards this next 5D level of being. Now, Aquarius does usher in a new level of consciousness and awareness, but also, again, I do want to address that one shadow aspect that can create a bit of an emotional disconnect. Now, the advancement towards consciousness can come through innovation. It can come through challenges. It can come through us being individual and focusing on ourselves. We can move towards different levels of consciousness and new levels of consciousness through many ways. There isn't just one pathway and one way to get there. We also need the contrasts in our lives to understand our own consciousness and to elevate, to probe into different levels, different areas of inquiry, different challenges within ourselves, to see ourselves more, to see humanity more, to see the world more, and to understand how we fit in with it. Right. And that is part of this archetype of where we fit in to help the evolution of consciousness, of humanity as a whole, and even technical advances. Technology is now part of our life, and it's up to us to embrace it or deny it and completely remove it from our lives, but we can't completely remove it because it's also how we stay connected. It is also part of our greater collective. And there is a very fine line of embracing it and welcoming it into one's life while also maintaining the emotional connection within ourselves and within others. So going back to this double karmic debt number combo, this can be a very powerful full moon. Now we also, as I mentioned, have the 16-7 in effect this month, where there could be a shift in consciousness from our egoic state, understanding our whole self versus the, I would say, the influence of our ego. Maybe even a death of ego in some form during this month. But this 19 has a very significant relationship with the self, with the one, the I, because the 1 and the 9 equals a 10, and that equals a 1. And the 1 is the individualistic self. It is the leader. It is very individual. It thinks about itself in a way. It can be on the selfish side, but it also can be on the empowering side. And that's where these two archetypes, Leo and Aquarius, meet. Is where can we empower ourselves to be individualistic, but also while considering the greater collective, how we fit in to this greater picture. And when we are strong within our knowing and within ourself, with our true self, we will show up more. We will be able to inspire more. We will be able to help more. I know I talk about it a lot in my videos, but it is part of this greater collective showing up in our whole self so that we can create that impact in the world as well. I also have a very special announcement to make. I have just completed my digital and print ready full moon journals. These are very extensive. There are 91 pages in both of them. In the digital format, there are hyperlink tabs where you can toggle between each full moon listed by zodiac. And in the print, you can print them off. You can jump in at any full moon and restructure the document accordingly. But this is a beautiful, in-depth full moon workbook that guides you into the zodiac archetypes. With the full moon, it is about deep shadow work, and it dives into the depths of the shadow aspects of all the 12 zodiac traits with prompts and rituals for you to deepen your practice with the full moon. So those are available on my website. I will leave a link below. And I also have a full moon ritual available by donation, and it is going to be ready for you to download as well. Keep an eye open for that. I'm wishing you all the best during this full moon. This one can be intense. Be aware of the energy, manage your energy accordingly. If you feel that the energy is becoming intensified within yourself, observe and go into your inner practice for this full moon. Connect with your emotional self. Watch the stubbornness, because we are in fixed energy. There can be a bit of stubborn energy, and open your heart. Open your heart to listen to others, to feel others, to connect with others, to maybe dive into emotional inquiry with other people, or even within yourself with your own heart, and maybe even identify where there are blocks and resistances to opening up more towards emotional connection with others, or again, within your own heart or within your own emotional self. Our emotional landscape is vast, and it can be very deep and very healing and very nurturing, and also will offer us a great ability to heighten our intuition and our senses. So the emotions are very important, although it is greatly as important to understand our intellect and our mindset of where we are focusing our attention towards. You can also use this full moon to understand your relationship with the greater collective, and that could be community, that could be family, it could be friends, it could be other people in general, or the world at large. You can also bring into the fold any shadow work around resistance to change, wanting control, wanting to feel safe, wanting to hold on to what the tried and true, or just wanting to go your own way and do things the way that you prefer, which is good. And I always encourage that. But is there an aspect of self that is blocking people out or creating distance within relationship dynamics? All right, so I'm going to leave it here. I am wishing you all the best during this very powerful full moon, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care.